Matteo Grattarola and Gabriel Marseille 4th and 5th last year to earn automatic qualification. 3 event riders in Toby Martin representing Great Britain, Sondre Hager for Norway, Benoit Bincaz for France, and Gironi Fajardo is your event wildcard. And it is Fajardo who will get us underway with the competition here tonight. Quick reminder that as we head towards this opening round of competition, every rider will have 5 minutes for their first run, 5 sections to complete. And the course will then be modified for the second run. New regulations this season, 5 sections to complete, but in the second round they will have only 4 minutes on the clock. And then in the grand final, timing will be 1 minute per section. Gironi Fajardo then about to embark on section 1, representing Sherco. This is 4th season with the manufacturer. Big step to start us off. A slight angle to it, which is going to help the riders make it to the top. But nonetheless, a big step with which we open. Timing starts as soon as any part of the bike makes its way into the section. 5 minutes is underway, but it's immediately down to a 5-mark score for section number 1, Gironi Fajardo. Always knew that was going to be a tough one. Very tall step. Now into section number 2. This one's a more technical section. Of course, in the case of a tie-break in this opening round, riders will be looking towards time. So there is an element or an extent to which Gironi Fajardo will want to get moving here. Looked as though he was remonstrating with the smoke machine before we got underway there with section 2, but he's in now. Still more than 4 minutes on the clock. Not much time used in section 1. Straight in and straight down. Gironi Fajardo then in section 2. Giant cotton reels, making efficient work of it thus far, Gironi Fajardo. A lot of movement at the top of the tower. Gironi Fajardo is through, and Jordi Sanchez marks that as a clean. First section successfully completed. After his failure in section 1, Gironi Fajardo remains on 5 marks. And then to section 3 for Fajardo. One of X-Trial's most experienced men, 37 years of age. 3 times he's been world number 3, including as recently as 2020. And over a century of World Championship appearances to his name. 28 podiums as well, so always a real contender, Gironi Fajardo. Today's event wildcard has the disadvantage of going out through the sections, so the other less experienced men will have an opportunity to learn from his lines and his approach. Main challenge of this section is this final step, and Gironi Fajardo has once again made it through clean. So a tough section 1, but Fajardo has made up for it since then. Remains on 5 marks. Remember, these scores will carry over into the second run, so every mark vital in the battle for places in the grand final. Into section 4. Fajardo shouting out there. I don't know whether the bike overreached further than he wanted to go, but either way, made it up that first step quite nicely. Heading now towards the exit gate. Just this diamonded block, and through he goes, and that's given us a clean as well. So a hat-trick of cleans for Gironi Fajardo. Just the one section still to come. Two minutes still on the clock. Of course, in the case of a tie-break, in terms of determining the starting order for the second round, it would be time we'd look at. So if Fajardo can bank any of that, he'd be grateful for it, but the focus will be on keeping as few marks as possible, because that is what is going to decide a place in today's grand final, and indeed positions at the end of the second round that will be based on the results of the opening 2 rounds combined. Good work there from Gironi Fajardo, avoiding taking a mark for leaning. Riders have to make it from that top cylinder onto the landing platform the other side. You can see resting on those pallets there, and then make their way up the left-hand corridor of this section 5. The right-hand corridor will be used later on in the competition. We'll see that in the grand final. And in the meanwhile, Gironi Fajardo heading towards the exit gate. One final challenge here, not to slip on the cross plate on the way out. Slippery material that. particularly when painted, but Gironi Fajardo has made it through, and with 1 minute and 3, so 63 seconds, still on the clock at the end of it as well. Gironi Fajardo finishes round 1 on 5-mark score. So far, so good as far as Gironi Fajardo is concerned. Wait to see what the other riders, of course, can do. Next up will be Gironi Fajardo's Sherco teammate in Benoit Bincaz. Mixed pre-season in his homeland, Bincaz. He was 8th and last in Toulouse. Bounced back with 2 third places in Chambéry last weekend. Swift adaptation then to his Sherco mount. What a crucial season 2023 is going to be for Benoit Bincaz, because after finishing world number 4 in 2020, he missed 2021 with a vertebral fracture and really struggled last year, 8th and last of the series regulars. Starting this campaign, as we mentioned in the build-up, as an event rider, the only Frenchman now at this level. And he certainly has something to prove. Lap starts as soon as any part of the bike enters the section. New regulations for 2023. So as soon as that front tyre crosses the white line, we are into the section. Well, Bincaz finds a little bit more reach than Fajardo, but still not high enough to make it up to the top, and he has to be caught by his minder. So like Gironi Fajardo, it's a 5-mark score in section 1, and for Bincaz to avoid slipping behind Fajardo in the pecking order, he will have to remain clean for the remainder of this run. And of course, beat him on time. Fajardo banked 63 seconds. 5 apiece, as you can see, between Benoit Bincaz and Gironi Fajardo, as Bincaz now embarks on section 2. A little bit of wobble later on in the section for Fajardo, and Bincaz will know he's got to avoid taking marks for leaning. That could be a decisive factor, particularly on these giant cotton reels. You look at those edges, that are a real risk for a rider to catch one and take a mark. Bincaz positioning himself for the exit, urged on by the crowd now. It was indeed good for Benoit Bincaz. Job well done in section 2. Remains level with Gironi Fajardo, but the slightest of errors is going to put Bincaz behind Fajardo, and since only 3 are going to qualify to the grand final, every mark could be vital. Into section 3 now for Benoit Bincaz of France. 4 times an X-Trial podium finisher. And almost 3 calendar years now since his last, and even accounting for that season out I mentioned previously, that really is too long for a factory rider. We know how capable Benoit Bincaz is. Finished only a single point from the World Championship rostrum as long ago as his debut season in 2018. Biggest challenge of section 3 is going to be that step at the end there. Bincaz aces it for a 2nd consecutive clean. Section 4 next up. Bit of a moment there for Bincaz as he bounces off to the left. The risk was that the front wheel might slip away from him, but he balances it well. One final step. Got to avoid taking a mark for leaning there, and he does so. Also new for 2023, the section is not completed until all of the bike is out of the section exit gate. So the riders really have to be focused on getting out cleanly right the way through. Section 5 now. Again, he's got to do it without dropping a mark. Precariously balanced is his assistant. Main leap of this section completed, and up onto the ramp, nicely done. And avoids dropping a mark for leaning on the rail. 5 apiece. Fajardo banked 63 seconds. Bincaz is just under 90 now. Oh, and an error from Benoit Bincaz. It's a single drop mark in section 5, and that will drop him behind Gironi Fajardo in the pecking order here in the opening round. So crucial moment there for Bincaz. And an error from the Frenchman. First real chink in his armour. 5-mark score in section 1, but I suspect that's going to be difficult for the vast majority. That single drop mark in section 5 could yet come back to haunt him. Watched on by the section observer Jordi Sanchez, the event promoter as well on hand. Bernard Estripeau, fellow Frenchman. Benoit Bincaz makes it through section 5, single drop mark. He finishes on 6. And that's a single mark more than Gironi Fajardo. So Fajardo leads your X trial on 5. And Benoit Bincaz, a single mark behind him on 6. Benoit Bincaz then making his way round the arena floor on one wheel. Sondre Haga limbers up for his performance. Sondre Haga, one of 6 riders, of course, who were included on the permanent rider roster in 2022. He only finished 2 points from the top 5 cut-off needed to make the automatic qualification into this season's field. Back as an event rider tonight on a promoter's pick, hence his starting position, based on his championship result from last year. Debut as a gas factory rider for Sondre Haga gets underway in section 1, and he was well short of what he needed there. And I've been Bincaz closest of any of the 3 who've tackled section 1 so far, but even he still had a fair way to go to make it to the top. That could be the kind of section that differentiates between a Tony Bow and someone who might find themselves a little bit further down the pecking order, perhaps. That remains to be seen. A lot of movement from those cotton reels as Sondre Haga makes his way into the section. Big cable drums for the riders to make their way through. Sondre Haga having another go. He's got himself into real trouble. That's going to be a mark for footing. Certainly. It's been given us 2, I think. Looking down at Jordi Sanchez in front of our commentary position. He's still struggling, Sondre Haga. Well done to him for getting himself out of that one. That looked a very sticky situation. He's now up onto 3 marks. Any further drop marks will be a failure, and he was close to slipping the sump onto the top of that obstacle, but he is out. And I think he might well see that as 2 marks saved rather than 3 marks lost, because partway through that section, I was almost certain that we were looking at a fiasco. That's where his height might have helped him. Long legs to reach between one element and the next. After he had to go backwards through the section at one stage, he turned himself away from the direction of travel just to give himself a bit of a run-up. So a little bit clumsy in section 2 from Sondre Haga. He drops behind Gironi Fajardo and Benoit Bincaz. But remember, it's 10 sections these days to determine who goes through to the grand final. So there is time in round 2 for Haga to try and make up some of those drop marks, but he can't afford to drop too many more, that's for sure. And he's going to drop 1, I think, in section 3. Mark for footing, right foot went down. Minder very nearly caught his bike, actually. Was certainly thinking about it. Final step, important one this. Most challenging element of this section 3. Up goes Sondre Haga, and he's done it. So just a single mark from that error in the early stages. Haga moves on to 9. Remember, that's 3 marks more than Benoit Bincaz, 4 marks more than Gironi Fajardo. And Haga still has 2 sections to come. Both of them cleaned by Gironi Fajardo. Single drop mark for Benoit Bincaz, of course, in section 5. confident landing there for Haga. A couple of little wobbles for the other two riders on the descent from there. An assured performance thus far from the Norwegian. Norway's only X-Trial rider, Sondre Haga. Clean in section 4. His first clean of the run. 9 marks now with only 1 section remaining. Well, Sondre Haga, who's participated in all 4 big pre-season events in 2023. 7th in Sheffield and Toulouse. 5th on both days in Chambéry. Not the best of results, but great opportunity for him to really warm up for this World Championship season. He's been out in Catalonia and away from home, certainly, since the trip to Sheffield. Good work there from Sondre Haga. Left Norway after Christmas and celebrating New Year, and came over for Sheffield, and then has come straight over to Catalonia since. Bases himself here. Does a lot of training work with Adam Raga as well. Two of them have a great relationship. Just bridging to this final block. And good use of throttle. Sondre Haga is through in section 5. Back-to-back cleans to end the run on a 9-mark score. 3 marks down on Benoit Bincaz, 4 marks back from Gironi Fajardo. Well, we know how quickly 5 marks can be lost. That's 1 section. But he's going to need 2 riders and possibly more to slip up in the second run if he's going to make it through to the grand final today. Sondre Haga, that particular piece of action earned the applause of the crowd. Big leap, and really had to exert himself to make the landing as well, stretching every sinew, but Sondre Haga gets there. 9 marks his score. So Gironi Fajardo 5, Benoit Bincaz 6, Sondre Haga 9. Last of the event riders out through the sections here, Toby Martin. 22-year-old, now in his 4th X-Trial season. Big step to start us off. Caught by his minder, Alex Wigg. Toby Martin is not able to get there. So section 1, another 5. But he's got to put that out of his mind now, because nobody has made it through that section. That's not going to be too costly, you wouldn't think. But Toby Martin, series regular in each of the last 2 seasons. The Brit, 6th overall last year, hence his 6th seeding position. 4th out through the sections in Barcelona tonight. Very swift, efficient work thus far in section 2. No real need to rush on time. You certainly don't want to pick up any penalty marks for the sake of banking some time, but that was extremely quick from Toby Martin. I would suspect the fastest of anyone in section 2 thus far. Sondre Haga, remember, dropped 3 marks there, so Martin remains on 5. Fajardo and Bincaz were on 5 at the same stage. Martin now into section 3. Standing last season at X-Trial Chalon-sur-Saône, of course, Toby Martin. Actually won the opening round, made it onto the podium. First time for him at World Championship level. Gets an applause there from his assistant.
3:15 left, loads of time.
Minder Wigg telling him he's got 3 minutes 15 and being generous with the truth there. Leaving himself with a little bit of a margin of 15 seconds, I think, when he said it. Another clean in section 3. Toby Martin looking really confident here. But remember, Gironi Fajardo finished the run on 5, so any dropped marks for Toby Martin, and he will drop out of the leadership of this X-Trial. Now, if Gironi Fajardo's 4 consecutive cleans at the end of his first run mean that this is a relatively low level for opening rounds, then time could be critical in terms of separating them or seeding positions in round 2. Starting order, Toby Martin taking a breather and a quick drink before he approaches the tallest of the sections here in the Palau Sant Jordi. Toby Martin on 5 marks. He's got 2.5 minutes still on the clock. 2:15 if you're his assistant. And 63 seconds were banked by Gironi Fajardo. So Martin looking really good on time. He's just got to avoid dropping any marks here to remain in the lead of the extra. Still the 5 big guns to come, of course, the top 5 from last year's World Championship. But so far, so good for Toby Martin. Front wheel up onto the ramp. Oh, is he going to take a slightly different approach here? He is. Loads of time. Here's the call from Alex Wigg as Toby Martin limbers up for the final passage of this Section 5. Looking every bit as good as the best of the riders who've come before him. Gironi Fajardo on 5 marks. Fajardo exited with 63 seconds on the clock. Martin is going to have more than that. Toby Martin takes the lead of Extra Barcelona. Strong performance from him. 5 marks the score. And 1 minute 26 saved. So 23 seconds faster than Gironi Fajardo, who was a little bit more cautious and also a little bit more rattled, frankly, Fajardo. Had a couple of moments with track staff on the arena floor. Now on to the top 5 from the 2022 World Championship. Your permanent riders, of course, for 2023. Big first step to get us underway in Section 1 for Gabriel Marseilly. Nobody has made it past this step thus far. Will Marseilly be the exception? Tough opener. This is a way of reminding everyone how difficult X-Trial Barcelona generally is. It's usually the toughest X-Trial of the season. Marseilly looking cool and calm, has time to wave to the crowd, but as soon as he crosses that white line with the rubber of that front tyre, that's when the time starts ticking and the serious business begins. Gabriel Marseilly, Section 1, and he's up! Lands it on the sump, so he's going to take a mark for leaning. He's encouraged to stay calm. He slides himself forward. That should only be the 1 mark. It is. Now, in the first rider to make it this far, of course, Gabriel Marseilly, so he's opening new ground. Riders are required to touch all of these obstacles, so he will have to go to the top of the section. This every bit as difficult as the opener. Marseilly, he's done it. It's another mark for leaning. He doesn't look happy with that, actually, but considering no one else has made it this far, it's been an excellent performance from Gabriel Marseilly. Set to provisionally take the lead of this X-Trial as early as the opening section. Avoids taking a mark for leaning on that step. Through the exit gate. Excellent performance that from Gabriel Marseilly. Biggest talking point of the night so far. He's rushing back though towards the paddock. So he will change over to the spare machine. Now, under the current regulations, the time continues to tick down, and bearing in mind, Marseilly was the first rider to make it to the end of Section 1, so that cost him a little bit in terms of time as well. Marseilly, I think, trying to talk to Takisa Fujinami, perhaps his team manager there. Fujinami right next to the paddock entrance, and I suspect talking more about the injury than the bike. He looked to be in some discomfort. It's his right knee that he injured with a big fall. Ah, there's a 5 for Marseilly, and he looks uncomfortable on the landing. And I'm not sure, not convinced at the moment, that we're going to see Marseilly make it to the end of this X-Trial. The way his reactions have been, excellent work in Section 1. If that's all we see from him, it was at least spectacular. Now he's into Section 3. Now the easier sections that are not as impactful are going to be better for him, but I was speaking to him earlier on today about that injury, and he's got a lot of swelling on the right knee, and whenever he is doing anything that requires a big force or a big impact, that's when it really starts to hurt. Marseilly looking okay in this Section 3. He'll be gutted about Section 2. It was a clumsy entrance. You wonder whether he was perturbed by going towards the paddock to change bikes there. Cries out again at the end of that section. So he's clean in Section 3, first clean of the night. He's on 7 marks, 2 better than Sondre Hager at the same stage, 2 down on where Fajardo and Martin both finished, despite his exploits in Section 1, and Marseilly looks to be in some discomfort. In now to section 4. Gabriel Marseille. Nasty crash in Toulouse 2 weeks ago. Looks to be costing him thus far. Finished that indoor trial in 3rd place, ahead incidentally of Adam Raga. Also finished 3rd in Sheffield. And I certainly had him down as the man most likely to challenge our established top 3 in the World Championship this year. That pre-season injury certainly not helping him. Now 1 minute 30 to tackle this section 5 for Gabriel Marseille. Is the Montesa Honda section. And Marseille is a Montesa representative. In fact, he's only ever appeared on Montesa machinery. Last year, though, was his first season with Repsol Honda. Incredible weight of expectation riding for such a massive brand. He will certainly hope that his second season with the manufacturer will be an even bigger one. With the team, I should say, will be an even bigger one. Less than a minute now. Made up some time because of that early failure in section 2. Well, this is a brave run indeed from Gabriel Marseille, who looked to be in discomfort from the start, who was forced into a change of machine. Nothing has quite gone how he would have planned, particularly after a stunning start in section 1 with only a 2-mark score. First rider to make it through there. It keeps him in the hunt. But will that injury prove too much to surmount in the remainder of the night, round 2? Excellent work on the opening step. First rider to make it up there. Took a mark for leaning. And then another on the next major step. But already on that first step, Marseille trying to shake the pain out of his leg. And here's another of our walking wounded. Matteo Grattarola is next up. 4th in the World Championship last year, 4th seed. Therefore 6th out into the sections. But Grattarola himself having had a big incident recently, riding through the pain barrier. Very underwhelming in pre-season trials at Sheffield and Chambéry day 1. Finished in 6th in both, 6th and last in the case of the visit to France. Acclimatisation to new machinery, also a factor for Matteo Grattarola, who makes his debut with Vertigo here as their factory number 1. Straight down in section 1. 5-mark score for Matteo Grattarola. That won't be of undue concern because Fajardo, Bincaz, Haga, Martin all failed it before him. And although Marseille made it through, Marseille wasted his opportunity with that 5-mark score in section 2. Oh, another incident at the start of section 2. Matteo Grattarola is down. 5-mark score for him, and he moves last now. That's section 2 that was easy enough at the start of the X-Trial. You would have to say looks to have got more difficult. Whether those pieces on the entrance to the section have started to slip away. Certainly looked like there was a fair bit of movement there when Marseille went out. I know the section designers were working on stabilising it after Marseille slipped off the side of it. Grattarola's fallen prey as well. Now into the Vertigo section for the Vertigo number 1. My goodness, Grattarola can't afford to add any more marks now. 10 marks. Sondre Haga finished round 1 on 9. Grattarola could really do with 3 cleans. Relatively straightforward X-Trial. Section 1, the only one that really has been a major barrier to progress for the riders. Matteo Grattarola gets through his first successfully completed section of the night. Section 3 is cleaned once again. 5 of the 6 riders have been cleaned through there now. Oh, poor opening step from Matteo Grattarola in section 4. That's another 5. Well, I can't see Grattarola coming back from this and making today's grand final. Could just be about salvaging the night now and getting as few marks as he can, both in this run and the second round as well. See if he can avoid last place, because at the moment he's 6 marks short of his nearest rival at the bottom of the pecking order, Matteo Grattarola. Toby Martin still leads X-Trial Barcelona on 5 marks, beating Gironi Fajardo in that tie-break on time. Benoit Bincaz on 6, Gabriel Marseille 7. Haga 9 and Matteo Grattarola 15. This is going to be potentially a disastrous start to his World Championship campaign. But another rider with his pre-season niggles potentially costing him the opener to that section 2 as well. First riders to hit it have been the most successful through it. Well, Grattarola's going to bank plenty of time here, but it's not going to serve him to any great extent unless another rider suffers 3 fiascos. Grattarola completes the course with 2 minutes still on the clock. And it is a clean in section 5. 15 marks the score then. So Matteo Grattarola, bottom of the 6 riders who have completed their opening outings. Toby Martin and Gironi Fajardo on 5 apiece. Benoit Bincaz on 6, Gabriel Marseille 7, Sondre Haga 9, and Matteo Grattarola 15. So our 3 medalists from 2022 are the only men who remain on the arena floor of the Palau San Jordi. Jaime Busto first of them. Resplendent in red once again. The only man other than Tony Bowe and Adam Raga to have won an extra in the last 7 years, Jaime Busto. Famously took Extra Paris in 2018. What a memorable night that was for the Extra World Championship. Back in the winner's circle at Andorra la Vella in October. He is our most recent Extra winner. Jaime Busto, 3rd seed, reigning world number 3. 7th out through this section 1. Only one man's completed it so far. Jaime Busto with paint sliding this way and that as the bike made it up. Lands it on the sump. So that will be a mark for leaning. The other mark taken by Gabriel Marseille, the only rider to have made it through section 1 so far, was on the landing of this step. It's another big one. Was that given as a mark, or did... no, Jaime Busto has managed to stay rubber side up. So just a single mark in section number 1 for Jaime Busto. Sensational performance. Only the 2nd rider successfully through there. Now he's got to avoid slipping up at this section 2. Last 2 riders have failed it right at the start. Gabriel Marseille and Matteo Grattarola are 2 injured stars. Busto rushes through it. He's not willing to get caught out there. He decides velocity is the system. A lot of movement on these big cable reels, of course. And if the bike slips away, X-Trial is a sport, discipline of precision. The one thing you can't afford is the unpredicted. Certainly Marseille's failure, Grattarola's failure as well. Unpredicted in section 2. Jaime Busto is through in that 2nd section as well. There was a moment when he looked close to taking a mark for leaning, but he managed to save it. So a single drop mark. 2 sections out of 5 completed. Former Vertigo man, Jaime Busto, heads now into the Vertigo section. Section 3. Cleaned by all but Sondre Haga thus far. Been a relatively straightforward one. Reigning and 4 times world number 3, Jaime Busto.
Perfecto, máximo atrás. Carguem porta,
Final step, successfully completed. Back-to-back cleans for Jaime Busto. Remains on a single mark from 3 sections. 2 to go. Busto looking good to move in front of Toby Martin as things stand. Fast entry to section 4. Wasting no time at all. And on the landing he gets it as well. That could have easily overbalanced and cost him a mark for footing, but Busto, spectacular, leaps through to the finish in section 4 clean. 3 in a row. The other riders all dropped down the other side of that obstacle, but Busto wasn't going to risk taking a mark for leaning. He flew across. 1 to go for Jaime Busto. 5 marks the current score for Gironi Fajardo, for Toby Martin. Jaime Busto with an opportunity to move as many as 4 marks clear. And that will guarantee him a place in the top 3 going into the 2nd round. And an opportunity then to defend an advantage. Try and book his place in today's grand final. Busto looking good. Well, section 1 making the difference for Jaime Busto. He's been clean since then. He's clean in section 5, and Jaime Busto takes the lead of Extra Barcelona. 1.5 minutes still on the clock as well. Remember, there is a World Championship point. First World Championship point of 2023 up for grabs to the top performer in the opening round. And Busto, I think, has put himself in the frame for that, as he flies down the staircase from the grandstand back to the arena floor to take the applause. Another look at the work from Jaime Busto at the end of that final section, completing the lap on just a single mark. So Jaime Busto leads us on 1, and with 1 minute 32 saved. Now over to Adam Raga. 4 times world champion. Really has an excellent record at Extra Barcelona. Took his maiden victory here all the way back in 2002. 6 times winner here, including, as I mentioned previously, his latest win at World Championship level in 2019. Adam Raga hoping to add to that tally here. Big first step, and he's up. Again, landing it on the sump, on the engine plate. Single mark, therefore, for leaning. Second major hazard of this section 1. Jaime Busto managed to do this bit clean. This could make the difference between the two of them if Raga can't match him. Up goes Adam Raga. Oh, Raga's got even more clearance on that step than Busto had. So strong ride from Adam Raga, who looks set to match Jaime Busto with a single mark in section 1. Game on. Busto versus Raga is all square. Any further drop marks and Jaime Busto will reclaim the lead of Extra Barcelona. Again, a lot of movement on the entrance to the section, as Raga batters them with the entire weight of his machine. TRS representative again in 2023, Adam Raga. Looking to maintain his run of consecutive podiums that stretches all the way back to Sheffield 2014. Incredible run at the top for Adam Raga. Remember, he's 4 marks up on what could potentially be 4th position. Could still be 3rd or even 2nd, depending on the remaining results for Raga and Bo. But if Raga and Bo both perform strongly here... Oh, big moment for Adam Raga, but he saves it. In section 3, 2 drop marks. One for the foot, one for the lean, to scrape himself up practically off the deck. Looked like he was going out of the section there for 5. That's going to be another case of marks saved rather than marks lost in section 3. That could have easily ended in a fiasco. So Adam Raga's taken 2 thus far. That's going to put Jaime Busto back in the lead. Tony Bo is going to have to go it some to match Busto. 2 drop marks for Raga in section 3. So Adam Raga is through. And he moves on to a 3-mark tally. So only 2 ahead now of Toby Martin and Gironi Fajardo. And if it does prove a low-scoring X-Trial, every single mark could be critical. Section 4, failed by Matteo Grattarola. Everyone else has managed to clean it. And Raga doesn't look like being the exception. He's going to take the Jaime Busto route, flying from peak to peak and straight through to the finish. 3 marks still. 2 up on Toby Martin, what I was talking about earlier. Ahead of Martin. If he stays ahead of Toby Martin, he will be defending a lead inside those top 3 positions going into the second round. Over 1.5 minutes to tackle this section 5. The big cascade into the grandstand for Adam Raga. Unable to beat Jaime Busto, who still leads Extra Barcelona then, but still ahead of both Gironi Fajardo and Toby Martin. time on his side as well. Big noise when the tyre hit the section. Raga, though, still looking good. And with over a minute still on the clock, Adam Raga is clean in section 5 and remains on a 3-mark score. So a quick rundown of your pecking order. Jaime Busto leads Extra Barcelona on 1. Adam Raga slots into second place on 3. Toby Martin and then Gironi Fajardo both on 5. Bruno Bincas 6. Gabriel Marcelli 7. Sondre Haga 9. And Matteo Grattarola desperately disappointing. Good work from Raga. Just that error in section 3. The 2 drop marks there proving costly. He won't be the first rider to score your opening World Championship point of this 2023 campaign. It's between Busto now, the current leader, and Tony Bowe, the next man out. Tony Bowe then, in his 100th X-Trial appearance, 15 times winner of X-Trial Barcelona, including in 2012, which wasn't included in the World Championship calendar, something of an anomaly, I should say. 5 minutes on the clock for Tony Bowe, about to embark on section 1. His 100th X-Trial, and down he goes. Now, Bowe must keep at least part of this front tyre in the section. He has got a little bit more margin to move back, and he is going to do so. To have another attempt at the opening step of section 1. Here we go, take 2. Oh, and he's down again, and this time it's a 5. Jaime Busto is the man to score the first World Championship point of 2023. Tony Bowe trails in the World Championship. Very early days. We're talking about a 7-round season. We're talking about 1 point. But who knows whether that could be important at the end of this season. Also important in terms of starting order for the second round. And Bowe, if he drops any further marks, and he was close to losing one there for leaning, if he drops any further marks, is going to slip behind Toby Martin and Gironi Fajardo. A rare unforced error from Tony Bowe. He had 2 attempts at the first step of section 1, and he couldn't make it up on either. And that is a big shock. Through easily enough in section 2. Tony Bowe remains on 5 marks, and he now is going to change to the spare machine. Gabriel Marcelli had to do so previously. Repsol Honda, unsurprisingly, very swift about their business. Timer's still counting down. Bowe is sent out. Now remember that Marcelli, in his first section back after changing machinery, immediately failed. Tony Bowe will hope that that bike is as warmed up as it needs to be. He's just gaining a little bit of confidence early in the section. Makes sure he gets the turn right. That, remember, is where Adam Raga slipped up and dropped a couple of marks. Sondre Haga, the only man to drop any ground in this section 3. Bowe, if he drops any more marks now, will slip out of those top 3 positions, the provisional qualification places to today's grand final. He's faultless, though, in section 3. Bowe remains on 5. The 5 marks he scored in section 1. 6 riders have failed that section that opens round number 1. Good work from Tony Bowe in section 4. Really managed to glide through that one. Not only did his feet not touch the ground, his tyres barely touched the ground either. 2.5 minutes for section 5. Cleaned by 7 riders. Just Bruno Bincas took a mark. Bowe looking to become the latest clean, and if he can, he would like to bank more time than Toby Martin. 1 minute 26 Martin kept in his pocket, and I think Bowe is on the right side of the stopwatch here. 2 minutes still on the clock, so Tony Bowe set to slot himself into 3rd place, albeit on a 3-way tie-back. A tie-break completes section 5 with a clean. It is a 5-mark score, but Bowe saves 1 minute 53 compared to 1 minute 26 for Toby Martin and 1 minute 3 for Gironi Fajardo in the back, leaving Fajardo in 5th, Bowe in 3rd. But of course, those times will only decide the starting order for round number 2. They will not have any impact on the riders who qualify to the grand final, barring a whole series of countbacks and tie breaks and so on. This was the key moment for Tony Bowe, the only moment actually that cost him any marks in his opening run. First time he was up, he was able to jump back down. Second time, he lands on his feet and it's game over. I was half surprised we didn't see him have another attempt. So here's a look at your round 1 results. Remember, under new regulations for 2023, all 9 of our riders will appear again in that second round, but little doubt about it, the likes of Sondre Hager and Matteo Grattarola in particular have an awful lot of work to do in their second appearance. It's tight at the top. Our top 7 riders separated by only 6 marks. Jaime Busto takes the first World Championship point of 2023 ahead of Adam Raga and Tony Bowe. More to come from Extra Barcelona.